All right, so it's been a couple of days. I've gotten a little more sleep. And I actually came out here yesterday and did not film a thing, but I got to working on this lever arm here. I took it back off and I modified it and bent it and to make it to where it would work. I have it to where now I just have it mocked in place, nothing's tight, but it is pulling the transmission through the gears now. Everything is mocked up. I like the way it's going. So let me take this apart and I'll show you what I did. All right, before I take everything loose under here, you can see the heim joints there. That's the lever arm on the side of the transmission, the threaded rod, and I've got to make sure that that threaded rod is not bumping the case right there. If so, I may have to make some minor adjustments. I think it's just the angle the camera's at currently. I believe there's enough room that it doesn't actually touch. So, but you can see where the arm comes through. You can actually start seeing some of the tweaking and bend that I actually had to do to make it work. So, let's disassemble it and get ready to put it back permanent. All right, so shifter's back out. Just a handful of screws. Everything was just hand tight, so it's not a big deal right now. You can see right here where I put it in a vise. Whoop. Or put it in a vise and tweaked it down just a little bit. And then I took and tweaked the pivot point back straight so that it swings straight through the sweep. And it was just enough to where it clears the tunnel up under here. Because it was when you had it in here, this arm was down in this hole. It just came up against the side of this tunnel and it just wasn't no making it work. So, had to make an adjustment. All right, something that just occurred to me, and we'll go back under the car and talk about it real quick. All right, so what we're looking at there is the transmission mount. And I don't know if you can tell or not, but the bracket is down touching the top of the cross member. That is a no bueno, no bueno. For the last, I don't know, year and a half or so, this thing, I have felt a vibration, and I'm pretty sure that this is probably going to be it. I don't know why it never dawned on me to check the rear transmission mount. Well, I have a transmission mount that came in from Rock Auto the other day. We'll get in and talk about it. I figured it's time to service the transmission pan anyway, and be a good time to go ahead and throw that mount in while we've got it down. Give me better access to getting that pan off anyway. All right, so went in, got the transmission mount. As you can see there, the red, white, and blue flag. This is an energy suspension transmission mount. It's high performance polyurethane components, made in America. So, you know, that gives me a little more assurance. But this mount should deal with my noise and vibration. And the other thing I wanted to mention is after I get this transmission mount installed, it could change the way the transmission sits, the throw, and a couple other things. So I decided before I go any further and do anything else that I need to go ahead and put this mount in before I finalize that shifter, because some stuff could change. So I'm going to get to doing this and servicing the transmission. All right, well, we got the transmission pan off, and I got more debris in it than getting it out from under the car than was actually in it. Hope you understand what I'm saying there. Fluid's still very clean. It's in it, and there's no clutch material in the bottom of it. And that magnet's got a little hair on it, normal wear and tear, especially after 20 years. But yeah, we're gonna get her all cleaned up and get the new gasket on and get it stuck back up in there. All right, so last night we got the transmission pan reinstalled, and then put on the transmission mount. And when we go under to talk about some more of the shifter stuff underneath the car, I'll show you all that stuff. But what we're trying to do today is get the shifter mounted to the floor correctly. And it's going to be on top of this carpet and this padding. So I've got to find where it is. And we've got one other thing I want to show you that I've got to make to cover this hole. So we're going to get in here and figure out where this is and start cutting this padding. We'll come back in here in just a minute and show you what we're doing. Alright, so you saw me just take and cut that padding out. Now I bring the carpet on top of it. And it's actually a layer of padding on this carpet on the back side, and then the carpet on top. So I've got to I can feel the dent in the carpet and the padding below this carpet, so I have an idea where to cut. I only get one shot to do this right. So I'm gonna get out my knife, try not to overthink it, and cut the carpet. Alright, well, that was nerve-wracking. When you don't have the carpet to replace this, if you bugger it up, you only, like I said, you only got one shot. But I think we did okay. I'm on over here, Mr. Cameraman, and you can see that the trim ring's going to fit just fine. We were talking about it off camera, about having to drill these holes and what we're going to have to do. Probably what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get a skinny screwdriver, a real skinny screwdriver that'll fit down in those holes, heat it up, and go through each hole and melt the carpet at each hole, and before I send a drill motor down through there that's going to snag and catch on all of the padding and the carpet. If I can send a screwdriver down through there and melt it, it should be able to be drilled, and then I can put my screws in to mount this to the floor. Hopefully, that's the theory anyway. So, all right, we're going to keep pushing forward. Next thing is we're going to pull all this back, and I've got to add a piece of rubber that we're going to talk about to for the shift arm to slip through. I'll explain that in a second. So, as you know, we cut a hole right here for the swing arm on the shifter. Well, it should helps to put it in there the right way. The swing arm for the shifter goes in right here. Well, you're going to have a boot that covers this, but you're still going to have this open hole underneath the boot. So I got thinking, Lokar doesn't mention anything about this, so I'm doing this on my own. So you take this advice and use it at your own discretion. What I got thinking about is I have seen on other cars and different things that have pass-throughs, they take a piece of rubber and they put over the hole, and they put a slit in the rubber for this arm to pass down through, and it provides some air intrusion, dirt intrusion, and other intrusions into the car. Like I said, it'll be covered with that boot, but still stuff could come up in and around that boot and be getting on your shifter. So this is kind of like, I call this like a dust shield. But like I said, this is my discretion and my decision. So you take that, and 50 cents you can get, well, not even 50 cents anymore, $1 you can get a cup of coffee. So there you go. All right, one thing to mention on this piece of rubber as well, if you're gonna take and do it like I am, I'm not gonna glue it to the floor. I may actually use a little bit of glue around the hole, but I'm gonna put some holes in it and I'm going to have the shifter actually sitting on top of this. And what I haven't figured out yet, and when I set the shifter down, it may make this shifter lean this way. And if it does, I'm going to take another piece of rubber and I'm going to put over here on this side so that it will sit there nice and level. I might also, seeing as how that the bolts that they give for this are quite short, I may have to get some longer bolts, which that's just a matter of another trip to the hardware store. You know, hey, what's another trip to the hardware store, right? And but I can get the same style button head with the Allen screw, just get them a little longer so that it goes through everything and I can get a good clamp force on it. So, well, my family's here, and we're going to take a break from this for right now, but we'll be back, and it'll only be a few seconds for you. So, y'all just hang on. All right, so we've got our Lokar shifter sitting here. You saw yesterday we cut the carpet and the insulation and got it down to where I'm going to make this dust shield that I talked about for that arm to slip through. Get something besides a black Sharpie. I can see the marks, and you can kind of see them there. But I really need to buy a couple of different colors, either gold, silver, something that'll show up when I have to mark on black. But yeah, get you a marker that'll show up. All right, and next we're going to talk about how to cut this rubber to make these holes. So, all right, let me talk to you for just a minute about cutting rubber. And to get a perfectly round hole, it can be a little difficult. One places I used to work, we used to have to make rubber gaskets occasionally, and you had to cut holes in them. And I used to have an old 3/8 hole cutter for rubber. One of the things we used to have to do is occasionally we'd have an odd size hole, and we would take and make our own cutters. You can be a shallow well or a deep well, but in this case, I used a 7mm socket, and you take and put it on the grinder, and you take and taper it, and you taper it to a sharp, so that it's got a nice sharp edge. I got a hole mark right there. I don't know if y'all can see it. I can, and try to get dead center on it. And you just take it, and boom, just like that. It cuts a nice, perfectly round hole. And I already did this one, so I wanted to make sure it was sharp enough before I showed you. But there it is. There's that piece. And I'm gonna take and make sure that it lines up with the holes that I have drilled in the car, so I don't have to kind of widen them a little bit, because need it to fit. Let's check it. Looks like it's pretty good. I'll bring you in here and let you look. Yeah, and this carpet back a little bit. And you can kind of see down through there. There's not much light under the car right now, but yeah, they line up perfectly. I'll tell you what I can do. That'll show you. I have them right here. I can just use these. Let's see. Yeah. Holes in the metal are a little tight, but see, there you go. They line up perfect. Now, all I got to do is drill the other one, and we'll be ready to mount this shifter to the floor permanently, I believe. All right, so we fast forwarded just a little bit. I've been working, trying to get some stuff done, trying to get this stuff done where I'll have some help putting this bench seat back in here this week. One of the things I have done is I've go ahead and this is a safety neutral switch. It's mounted to the side of the Lokar. I have tested it with an ohm meter. You make sure that it has contact when it's fully engaged in park. Pull it into reverse, make sure it goes open, put it into neutral, and you want to make sure that it has continuity between these two posts again. And then you put it into drive, and you make sure that it goes open. That way, when you are trying to use the start circuit, it does not crank in gear. I have made an extension for this harness that has to run under the carpet, and I'm going to run it out and have it come out here by the column, and I will eventually have to get the safety neutral wires from under the vehicle and run up through. There's a hole right there, and I'll have to come hook them together. And then I have taken my pieces of rubber and I glued them to the floor. I've already removed them, but I went ahead, and while the glue was drying so that it wouldn't move, I stuck the bolts in the holes all the way down, and went ahead and started doing some other stuff with the bolts, and the bolts were shoved all the way in, by the way, and I let the glue dry because I didn't want that to be moving around, and I'm trying to get the shifter lined up and all that. So we are fixing to try to run that harness under the carpet and where it'll come out right there, and then start mounting this shifter. So hang on, it's getting closer. Okay, shifter is in. We put the bolts in. My son came over and didn't waste your time with us showing you how to tighten some bolts and nuts. I got underneath with a 1/2-inch wrench, and he worked from up top here with this little doodad right here. It's an Allen wrench. Tightened it all up. So I'm fixing to work on getting that shifter boot ring dialed in and located. It's going to be a bunch of hole drilling, and got to figure out the boot. Got to take the knob off and all that good stuff. But like I said yesterday, we're going to have to probably take and like melt some holes in the carpet with a torch and a screwdriver, and just so that we don't snag the carpet when I put the drill through there, and screws and such. So I'm trying to not ruin this carpet if I can at all help it. As you can see from the time lapse, we got all the holes drilled. Whatever reason, on this hole and this hole, we broke 4 drill bits. I don't know if it was wadding up in the carpet or what. What I said there at the beginning, where I wanted to take a torch, heat, and melt a hole to keep the carpet from fraying. Well, I had loaned my torch out to my son, and I haven't got it back, so we just did the old let's send it method. And but it's in. Let me see the camera, bring them in close, and there it is. It's in and mounted, boots on it. So now we put the bench seat back in, and I've got all this other wiring and stuff I'm going to have to deal with, and that's going to be coming up probably tomorrow. Be only a couple seconds for you though. Well, we've had a bunch of busy days. We have been hard at it. As you can see, we got the bench seat back in it. We've got the shifter finalized. We've got the safety neutral switch wired up. We have the reverse lights wired up. We have added a horn. We have added a park brake. Now, let me bring you on in here a little closer, and I'll show you all of it. All right, so before my son left the other night, I had him help me set the bench seat back in place, so I did not herniate myself. We had the, as you saw, we had the shifter already done, so it was not an issue. A couple of little things that I did not mention that we got back together. Got the steering wheel back on it, and I was able to move the speedometer head from over here on the side. And since we took the stock shifter out, where there's a tube coming up through here, I can put the speedometer to where it's straight up and I can see it without having to twist my head off to the side. But what we had to do is I made a harness to come from that safety neutral switch, and I brought it over here under the carpet, and I brought the wires in from the old safety neutral switch and connected them, and they're underneath the carpet right there so that the safety neutral works and you will not crank it in gear. And what we did was, for the reverse lights, is we actually took the old safety neutral switch, which was on the side of the transmission, and we converted it to where it will work the reverse lights. And give me a second, we'll crawl underneath and I'll show you that. All right, it's very difficult to get enough light in here to see properly. It's very hard to get a camera angle, but what you were looking at is this was an add-on piece, and it was a Lokar piece, and it was an aftermarket safety neutral switch, and I retrofit it to work the reverse lights. So I took and disassembled the old reverse light switch wiring, and I moved it down here so that the this switch, instead of operating safety neutral, now makes the backup lights work. And you can kind of see the shifter arm right there and the wiring where it comes down. What you have to do is there are two places on that plate, one for park, one for neutral, and you have to snip one of them off and align it with reverse and align your arm so that it presses the switch when it is in reverse, and then tighten that nut down. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. You can see how it mounts to the side of the transmission pan right there. This is a universal, like I said, a universal kit that Lokar offers for safety neutral or reverse lights. And so, well, we're using it for reverse lights and using the switch that is on the shifter for safety neutral. All right, that's enough about that. Let's move back here and we'll talk about the park brake. All right, let's start here. This is a socket that I used to make a coupler between the cable and the link arm. All of this was still on the car. The cables, the brackets, where they go back all the way back to the rear drums. All this was still on the car, but there was no coupler, there was no cable, there was nothing to connect you from the inside of the car to this piece. So I took a socket, I cut a slit so the cable would slide in it, and I have a ball carbide bit, and I stuck it down in there with my drill, and I took and ground a little place for the ball on the end of the cable to ride so that it can't fall out. So the cable runs right there. We didn't have the correct clips to hold the cable in place, and all you want to do is to keep it from pulling out. And a little hose clamp clamps it to the piece of angle iron that I added right there, and the cable runs up through the frame where it's supposed to go. And I think it would be good to tell you that this is actually a cable, and it's almost exactly the same thing, and it's for my 64 Mercury Comet. It works perfectly. So let's go inside and I'll show you that. Now, first of all, I will say I did not take a lot of time and I just do not have a lot of time right now to paint and make that park brake handle new again. But it mounted perfectly in place. The cable mounts to it, comes up through the firewall right there, and I added a hose clamp right there to keep it from falling back out of the hole. It goes around the pivot wheel and connects to the bottom of the park brake handle just like it's supposed to, just like factory. They did not change a whole lot, so park brake still works perfectly. I have yet to get an opportunity to try it, but I will be trying it out and making sure that it works just like it's supposed to. Over here, I have an added switch right here, momentary switch. Oh, my battery's undone. So much for the dramatic effect. have the battery undone because it leaves the dome light on when the door is open, so it kills the battery. So I can bring you out here and show you. There is the horn. We mounted it under the hood and wired it up. It is on a 10 amp fuse, and found a power spot right down there off of the old horn relay. Got our 12 volts. You see our 10 amp fuse just hanging out there. Eventually I'm going to neaten that up and put it somewhere a little better and get a little better fuse holder. But for now, for this trip, it'll be just fine. But we got the wires run back inside to a momentary switch, and it is a fused circuit, so you know we won't burn the car down with our horn. All right, so you can see we have our handy dandy list here, and we've got several things scratched off. What we got left is basically maintenance. Got to install tires, check oil levels. I did not scratch off. I need to scratch off right here. We have the scuff plates reinstalled. I took a body tool and a hammer and knocked some of the small dents and dings out of them and got them straightened back up and looking a little better. But like I said, we've got maintenance items left to do, like checking the differential, checking the steering gearbox oil, grease the front end, check adjustment on the brakes, and install the tires and wheels. Now on the back, this is kind of a getting ready for the road trip part here. Most of this stuff is toolkit, jacks, you know, make sure you got your extra fluids, extra parts. Have my fire extinguisher, have my spare tire and wheel. That could be problematic. I had problems with that last year. And if time permits, I have some new tail lights that I can put some new blue dots in and get those installed. That's going to be time permitting. So we've just got a handful more things that we got to do to get this old girl ready for the road trip and heading to cruising the coast. So while we're working on those things, why don't you go out and watch another video coming on the screen right now.